The single gunshot echoed through the valley, startling Owen Edwards as he tightened the cinch on his saddle. It wasn't the crack of rifle fire that had him worried. Hunting was common enough in these parts, but rather what awaited him at home after 3 long weeks away. April 1875 had been unkind to the widowed rancher, and he feared what more could be taken from him upon his return to his modest homestead just outside Rico, Colorado. Owen wiped the trail dust from his weathered face, his 32 years weighing on him like twice that number. The silver boom had brought prosperity to some in Rico, but for men like him, scratching a living from the unforgiving earth remained a daily struggle. His daughter, Lily, just 6 years old, was all he had left after his wife Sarah succumbed to fever 2 winters past. He urged his horse forward, cresting the final hill that overlooked their small cabin. Smoke curled from the chimney. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor who looked after Lily during his cattle drives, was keeping the hearth warm. Yet as he approached, something seemed amiss. The usual welcoming shout from his daughter was absent. Instead, as he dismounted and approached the cabin door, he heard something that froze his blood: the heartbreaking sobs of his little girl. Owen pushed open the door, his spurs jingling as he rushed inside. "Lily? Lily, darlin', what's wrong?" The sight before him twisted his heart. Lily sat on the floor, her golden curls falling over her face as she cried, cradling something in her small hands. Mrs. Patterson stood nearby, her weathered face apologetic. "She's been like this since yesterday, Mr. Edwards," the old woman explained, gathering her shawl around her shoulders. "That doll her mother made her. It just came apart at the seams. I tried to fix it, but these old hands aren't what they used to be." Owen knelt beside his daughter, gently touching her shoulder. "Let me see, sweetheart." Lily looked up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. In her hands lay Sarah's final gift to her daughter, a cloth doll with yellow yarn hair and a calico dress, now torn at the shoulder with stuffing spilling out. One button I hung by a thread, and the embroidered smile was partially unraveled. "Mama made her," Lily whispered. "She's breaking, Papa, like Mama broke." Owen swallowed hard, fighting the lump in his throat. "She's not breaking, darlin'. She just needs some mendin'," he said, his voice gentle. But as he examined the doll, he knew his rough hands, more suited to breaking horses than delicate needlework, would only make things worse. "Thank you for watching her, Mrs. Patterson," Owen said, standing and walking the elderly woman to the door. "I've got it from here." After the neighbor departed, Owen prepared a simple supper of beans and bacon, but Lily barely touched her food, her eyes constantly drifting to the broken doll laid carefully on the table between them. "Tomorrow," he promised as he tucked her into bed that night, "we'll ride into town and see if someone can help us fix her up good as new." Morning came with the promise of clear skies. After breakfast, Owen saddled his horse and lifted Lily to sit in front of him. The doll was wrapped carefully in a handkerchief and placed in his saddlebag. The ride into Rico was quiet, Lily subdued against his chest. The mining town was bustling with its usual morning activities: miners heading to the silver diggings, merchants opening shops, and wagons delivering goods. Owen tied his horse outside the general store and lifted Lily down. "Mr. Daniels might know someone who can help," he explained, leading his daughter inside. The bell above the door announced their arrival, and the shopkeeper looked up from his ledger. "Well, if it ain't Owen Edwards. Back from your drive, I see. And little Miss Lily, too." Mr. Daniels smiled, but his expression faltered when he noticed Lily's downcast eyes. "We've got a bit of an emergency," Owen explained, retrieving the wrapped doll. "Sarah made this for Lily before. Well, before. It's come apart, and I was hoping you might know someone with the skills to repair it." Mr. Daniels examined the doll carefully through his spectacles. Delicate work this. I'm not sure." He paused, stroking his beard. "Wait, The new seamstress might be able to help. Miss Katherine Fairchild. She opened up shop about 2 weeks ago, down the street. Does dressmaking and alterations. She's got a real gentle touch with fabric, from what the ladies say. Owen nodded his thanks and led Lily back outside. The seamstress's shop was a small building with freshly painted blue trim and a wooden sign that read, Fairchild Dressmaking and Alterations. A tiny bell tinkled as they entered the shop, which smelled of clean fabric and lavender. "Be right with you," called a voice from behind a curtained doorway. A moment later, a young woman emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. She had chestnut hair neatly pinned up, revealing delicate features and kind green eyes. Owen judged her to be in her mid-20s, though the intelligence in her gaze gave her a certain timeless quality. "Good morning," she said warmly. "I'm Katherine Fairchild. How may I help you?" Owen removed his hat, suddenly aware of his trail-worn appearance. "Madam, I'm Owen Edwards. This is my daughter, Lily. We were hoping you might be able to help us with something important." Katherine smiled at Lily, who had partially hidden herself behind her father's leg. "Hello, Lily. It's very nice to meet you." Slowly, Owen unwrapped the doll. "This was made by my late wife. It's very special to Lily, but it's come apart in places. We were wondering if you might be able to mend it." Katherine approached and carefully took the doll in her hands, examining it with a professional eye. "This was made with love," she said softly. "I can see the care in every stitch." She knelt down to Lily's level. "What's your doll's name, sweetheart?" "Sally," Lily whispered, the first word she'd spoken all morning. "Well, Sally needs a little help, doesn't she? Her stuffing is trying to escape, and her eye is getting sleepy." Katherine's gentle humor coaxed a tiny smile from Lily. "Would you trust me to help her feel better?" Lily looked up at her father, who nodded encouragingly. "Can you make her like Mama did?" she asked Katherine. A flash of compassion crossed Katherine's face. "I'll do my very best to make her just as special as when your mama made her." She stood and addressed Owen. "It will take me a few hours. Perhaps you could return this afternoon." Owen glanced at Lily, who was watching the seamstress with hopeful eyes. "We'll wait," he decided. "We've got some supplies to get anyway." Katherine nodded. "I understand. Please feel free to come back in 3 hours. I promise Sally will be in good hands." As they stepped outside, Lily tugged at Owen's hand. "Will the pretty lady really fix Sally, Papa?" "I reckon she will, darlin'. She seems to know what she's doing." They spent the morning at the general store, purchasing supplies and having a simple lunch at the small cafe next door. All the while, Owen found his thoughts drifting to the seamstress with the gentle hands and kind smile. It had been so long since he'd noticed such things about a woman, and the realization brought a mixture of guilt and confusion. When they returned to Katherine's shop, they found her sitting by the window, her nimble fingers working the last stitches on Sally's dress. She looked up and smiled as they entered. "You're right on time," she said, tying off her thread. "Sally and I have had quite the conversation while I've been fixing her up." Lily approached cautiously, her eyes wide. Katherine presented the doll with a small curtsy. "I believe Miss Sally is ready to go home now." The transformation was remarkable. Sally's torn shoulder was mended so perfectly that the repair was nearly invisible. Her button eye was securely reattached, and the embroidered smile was restored. Katherine had even washed the doll's dress and combed out her yarn hair, tying it with a small blue ribbon that matched the dress's trim. Lily gasped and took the doll reverently in her hands. "Sally!" she exclaimed, hugging the doll to her chest. "Thank you, thank you," she cried, surprising both adults by throwing her arms around Katherine's waist. Katherine's eyes met Owen's over the child's head, and he saw them shining with unshed tears. "You're very welcome, Lily," she said, gently patting the girl's back. Owen cleared his throat, overcome with gratitude. What do we owe you, Miss Fairchild? Katherine shook her head. Nothing, Mr. Edwards. It was my pleasure. I can't accept that, Owen insisted. You've done fine work, and it means more than you know. A gentle smile touched her lips. Then, perhaps, you could come to Sunday dinner at the boarding house where I stay. Mrs. Miller always makes too much food, and she's been insisting I invite guests. A faint blush colored her cheeks. That is, if you and Lily would care to join us. Owen felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through him. We'd be honored, Miss Fairchild. As they rode home, Lily chatted happily to Sally, telling the doll everything they had seen in town. Owen remained quiet, his thoughts occupied by chestnut hair and kind green eyes. Sunday came quickly. Owen dressed in his best shirt, polished his boots, and even trimmed his beard. Lily wore her blue dress, and Sally, of course, came along, sporting her matching ribbon. Mrs. Miller's boarding house was a large two-story building on the edge of town. Katherine greeted them at the door, wearing a simple but becoming green dress that brought out the color of her eyes. I'm so glad you could come, she said, ushering them inside. Mrs. Miller has outdone herself today. The boarding house dining room was filled with an assortment of residents, a young schoolteacher, an elderly bookkeeper, and a few miners who had cleaned up nicely for Sunday dinner. Mrs. Miller, a robust woman with a perpetual smile, presided over the table like a benevolent general. So you're the widower with the little girl and the doll, she said directly to Owen, as Katherine blushed beside her. Katherine hasn't talked about anything else all week. Mrs. Miller, Katherine protested, but the older woman merely chuckled. Life's too short for beating around the bush, dear, especially out here in Colorado. She turned back to Owen. Now, tell me about your ranch, Mr. Edwards. The dinner was the most pleasant Owen had experienced in years. The food was hearty and delicious, the company warm and welcoming. Lily became the darling of the boarding house, proudly showing Sally to everyone and explaining how Miss Katherine had made her all better. As the afternoon waned, Katherine offered to show them the small garden behind the house. Lily ran ahead, chasing a butterfly with Sally in tow, while Owen and Katherine followed at a more sedate pace. You have a wonderful daughter, Mr. Edwards, Katherine said softly. She has a beautiful spirit. Please call me Owen, he replied. And yes, she's the light of my life. She reminds me so much of her mother sometimes. He hesitated. I hope that doesn't make you uncomfortable. Katherine shook her head. Not at all. Love doesn't just disappear when someone is gone. It becomes part of who we are. She paused. I lost my parents in a fire when I was 17. I understand something of what it means to carry people with you. I'm sorry, Owen said, genuinely moved by her candor. Is that why you came west? She nodded. After the fire, I lived with my aunt in Boston, but I wanted to make my own way. I heard there were opportunities in the mining towns, men with torn shirts and women who needed dresses. She smiled. Rico seemed like a good place to start. It's a rough town in some ways, Owen warned. Mining towns often are. I'm stronger than I look, Katherine assured him, a hint of steel beneath her gentle demeanor. And I found good people here. Their eyes met, and Owen felt something shift within him, a door long closed, creaking open just a fraction. Before he could speak again, Lily came running back, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Papa, Miss Katherine. Look what I found. She held up a wildflower, its purple petals bright against her palm. Katherine knelt beside her. That's columbine, the Colorado state flower. It's very special, just like you. The ride home that evening was filled with Lily's chatter about the boarding house, Mrs. Miller's pie, and especially Miss Katherine. Owen listened, his mind replaying moments from the day, the way Catherine's eyes crinkled when she laughed, how skillfully she drew Lily out of her shyness, the quiet strength that seemed to radiate from her. "Can we see Miss Katherine again, Papa?" Lily asked as he tucked her into bed that night. Owen brushed a curl from her forehead. "I think we might, darlin'. Would you like that?" Lily nodded, hugging Sally close. "She makes you smile the way you used to smile at Mama." Owen's breath caught. Children saw things so clearly sometimes. "Get some sleep now," he said softly, kissing her forehead. In the quiet of the evening, Owen sat on his porch and contemplated the stars. For the first time in 2 years, he allowed himself to imagine a future different from the lonely path he had resigned himself to walking. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The next few weeks brought Owen into town more frequently than he had visited in the previous year combined. There were always reasons, supplies needed, equipment to repair, questions about cattle prices, but they were thin excuses for the true purpose of his visits. Katherine seemed equally pleased to see him each time. Sometimes their encounters were brief, a quick greeting as she hurried to deliver a completed dress or as he loaded supplies. Other times they managed longer conversations, often with Lily as an enthusiastic participant. Owen learned that Katherine had a sharp mind for business, was teaching herself Spanish to better serve the Mexican families in the area, and could quote long passages of Shakespeare from memory, a legacy from her schoolteacher father. She learned that despite his rough exterior, Owen had a deep appreciation for poetry, played the harmonica on quiet evenings, and dreamed of someday raising horses instead of cattle. After a month of these increasingly frequent visits, Owen finally gathered his courage while delivering a load of firewood to the boarding house. Katherine had come out to greet him, and as Lily played with the landlady's cat, he awkwardly extended an invitation. "Miss Fairchild, Katherine, I was wondering if you might like to join Lily and me for dinner at our place this Saturday. Nothing fancy, mind you, but I make a decent stew, and we'd be honored by your company." Katherine's smile lit up her face. "I would like that very much, Owen." Saturday found Owen in a state of near panic. He had cleaned the cabin until it shone, prepared his best beef stew with vegetables from their small garden, and even picked wildflowers for the table. Lily had been his enthusiastic helper, arranging and rearranging Sally's place at the table until everything was perfect. "Do you think Miss Katherine will like our house, Papa?" Lily asked as they waited. "I hope so, darlin'," Owen replied, adjusting his collar for the 10th time. "It's not fancy like the boarding house, but it's home." The sound of an approaching wagon had them both rushing to the door. Katherine drove a small buggy she had borrowed from Mrs. Miller, her hair partly loose beneath her bonnet, catching the late afternoon sunlight. Owen thought she had never looked lovelier. "Welcome to our home," he said, helping her down from the buggy. Katherine took in the small cabin with its fresh swept porch and smoke curling from the chimney. Beyond it stretched meadows and rolling hills, with the mountains rising in the distance. "It's beautiful," she said sincerely. "So peaceful compared to town." Lily took Katherine's hand, eager to show her everything: the chickens in their coop, the vegetable garden, her special tree for climbing, and finally, the interior of the cabin with its polished wood floors and simple, comfortable furnishings. Dinner was a relaxed affair, with conversation flowing easily. Katherine complimented Owen's stew enthusiastically, and he felt an absurd amount of pride at her approval. After the meal, as the evening grew cooler, they sat on the porch while Lily showed Katherine her collection of pretty stones and feathers. As darkness fell and Lily's eyes grew heavy, Owen carried her inside to bed. Katherine sat beside them as he tucked his daughter in, and together they listened to Lily's prayers, which now included a special blessing for Miss Katherine, who fixed Sally and makes Papa happy. When they returned to the porch, a comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the chirp of crickets and the distant howl of a coyote. "Thank you for inviting me," Katherine said finally. This has been the most pleasant evening I've had in a very long time. Owen turned to face her, gathering his courage. Katherine, I'm not a man of many words, but these past weeks, getting to know you has meant a great deal to me. And to Lily. He took a deep breath. I haven't felt this way since Sarah, and I never expected to again. Katherine's eyes shone in the moonlight. Owen, when I came to Rico, I was only looking for a place to build a new life, not. She hesitated. Not someone to share it with, but now I can't imagine this town without seeing you and Lily in it. Slowly, with the care of someone approaching a wild animal, Owen reached for her hand. Her fingers intertwined with his, warm and certain. I don't want to rush this, he said softly. You deserve a proper courtship. Katherine squeezed his hand. I would like that very much. Their courtship unfolded gradually over the summer months. Katherine came to the ranch on Sundays after church, sometimes staying for dinner, sometimes for the whole day. Owen and Lily visited town more regularly, often sharing meals at the boarding house or walking together through Rico's busy streets. The town took notice of the developing relationship between the widowed rancher and the seamstress. Most viewed it with approval. Owen Edwards deserved happiness after his loss, and Katherine Fairchild had proven herself a valuable addition to the community with her skilled hands and kind manner. One Sunday in late August, Owen arrived at the boarding house to find Katherine waiting on the porch, a picnic basket in hand and worry etched on her face. What's wrong? He asked immediately, helping Lily down from the wagon. Mrs. Miller overheard something at the mercantile, Katherine said quietly, so Lily wouldn't hear. A group of cattle rustlers has been working the area. The sheriff issued a warning for ranchers to be vigilant. Owen's jaw tightened. Cattle rustling was a constant threat, but hearing of nearby activity made it more immediate. Thank you for telling me. I'll keep a sharp eye out. Despite this shadow, their picnic in the meadow outside town was delightful. Lily collected wildflowers while Owen and Katherine talked of everything and nothing, his plans for the ranch, her growing business, books they had both read, dreams they shared. As the afternoon waned, Lily fell asleep on the blanket, her head resting on Katherine's lap. Katherine gently stroked the child's golden curls, a look of such tenderness on her face that Owen felt his heart constrict. She loves you, he said softly. Katherine looked up, her eyes misty. And I love her. So much it sometimes frightens me. Frightens you? She nodded. I never expected to care this deeply for someone else's child. Or, she paused, gathering courage. Or for someone else's father. Owen reached across the sleeping child and took Katherine's hand. I love you, Katherine Fairchild. I think I have since you fixed that doll with such care, seeing how important it was to my little girl. A tear slipped down Katherine's cheek. I love you too, Owen. I've been afraid to say it. Afraid it was too soon or that you weren't ready. I wasn't, he admitted. Not until you. You brought something back to life in me that I thought had died with Sarah. The sound of approaching horses interrupted the moment. Owen turned to see 3 riders approaching from the direction of town. He recognized Thomas Bennett, a neighboring rancher, with his 2 hands. Edwards, Bennett called, reining his horse to a stop nearby. Glad I found you. Rustlers hit the Mackenzie place last night. Took 20 head and shot one of Mackenzie's boys when he tried to stop them. He'll live, but the sheriff's forming a posse. We could use your tracking skills. Owen felt torn between duty and the desire to stay with Katherine and Lily. Katherine made the decision for him, gently shifting Lily to the blanket and standing up. You should go, she said firmly. I'll take Lily back to the boarding house and stay with her until you return. Owen hesitated. Are you certain? Completely, Katherine assured him. Lily and I will be fine together. You're needed. Owen quickly helped Katherine gather their picnic things and load them into the wagon. He knelt beside his sleeping daughter, kissing her forehead gently. "Tell her I'll be back as soon as I can," he said to Katherine. She nodded, then surprised him by placing her hands on his shoulders and kissing him swiftly. "Be careful, Owen Edwards. You have people waiting for you to come home." The posse tracked the rustlers for 2 days, finally catching up with them near the New Mexico border. The confrontation was brief but violent. 2 of the rustlers were killed in the exchange of gunfire, and 1 was captured. The sheriff took custody of the prisoner while the ranchers recovered their stolen cattle. Owen returned to Rico dusty, exhausted, and sporting a bullet graze on his upper arm where a shot had come too close. His first stop was the boarding house, where he found Katherine and Lily on the porch, the little girl reading aloud from a book while Katherine worked on embroidery. "Papa!" Lily cried, dropping the book and running to him. Owen scooped her up with his good arm, holding her close. Katherine was only a step behind, her face reflecting relief and concern as she noticed the crude bandage on his arm. "You're hurt," she said, reaching toward him. "Just a scratch," he assured her. "But I wouldn't mind having a skilled seamstress take a look at it." Mrs. Miller, upon seeing Owen's condition, immediately set about preparing a hot bath and meal, while Katherine tended to his wound. Her touch was gentle as she cleaned the graze and applied a proper bandage. "Were you afraid?" she asked softly, so Lily wouldn't hear from where she was helping Mrs. Miller set the table. Owen considered the question honestly. "Not of the rustlers," he replied, "but of not coming back to you and Lily." "Yes." Katherine's hands stilled on his arm. "While you were gone, Lily asked me if I was going to be her new mama." Owen's heart skipped. "What did you tell her?" "That it would be up to her father, but that nothing would make me happier." Her eyes met his, vulnerable yet certain. "I meant it, Owen." That night, after Lily was settled in one of Mrs. Miller's spare rooms, Owen and Katherine sat together on the boarding house porch. The events of the past days had crystallized something in Owen's mind, bringing clarity to what he truly wanted. "Katherine," he began, taking her hands in his, "I'm not a wealthy man. My ranch is modest, and raising cattle is hard work with uncertain rewards." He took a deep breath. "But everything I have, everything I am, I would share with you, if you would consider becoming my wife." Katherine's eyes filled with tears. "Owen Edwards, I've never cared about wealth or luxury. What I care about is the kind of man you are: honorable, loving, devoted." She squeezed his hands. "Yes, I will marry you. With all my heart, yes." Their kiss was tender, a promise of a shared future stretching before them. The news of their engagement spread quickly through Rico. Mrs. Miller insisted on hosting an engagement dinner, inviting what seemed like half the town to celebrate. Even Mr. Daniels from the general store closed early to attend, bringing with him a beautiful bolt of white fabric as a gift for Katherine. "For your wedding dress," he explained with a wink. "Though I suspect you could make one out of flour sacks and still look like an angel." The wedding was set for October, when the autumn colors would be at their peak in the Colorado mountains. Katherine continued her seamstress work, though now she spent weekends at the ranch, getting to know the rhythms of the place that would soon be her home. Lily followed her everywhere, soaking up Katherine's knowledge of sewing, cooking, and the stories she told of life in Boston. September brought an unexpected letter to Katherine's shop, an inquiry from a Denver department store that had heard of her skilled needlework. They offered to carry some of her designs and custom pieces, which would mean a significant expansion of her business. She brought the letter to the ranch that weekend, uncertain how Owen would react to the opportunity that would occasionally take her to Denver, a day's journey from Rico. "This is wonderful news," Owen said after reading the letter, his face showing genuine pleasure. "Your work deserves to be recognized." "You wouldn't mind?" Katherine asked. "I would need to go to Denver perhaps once every few months." Owen took her hands. "Katherine, I would never ask you to give up something that brings you such fulfillment. We'll make it work." His understanding strengthened their bond, confirming for Katherine that she had found a partner who would support her dreams as she supported his. As the wedding approached, Katherine moved most of her belongings to the ranch, transforming the cabin with small touches that made it feel like a true home. She hung curtains she had sewn herself, arranged wildflowers in mason jars, and filled the bookshelves with volumes from her own collection, alongside Owen's more practical manuals on ranching and horse breeding. The night before the wedding, Owen sat on his porch alone, watching the stars emerge. Tomorrow, Katherine would arrive in the dress she had secretly been making, and they would exchange vows before the pastor and their friends. Lily would stand with them, officially becoming Katherine's daughter as Katherine became Owen's wife. The thought filled him with a deep contentment he had never expected to feel again after Sarah's death. There was still a place in his heart that belonged to his first wife, but Katherine had never asked him to forget, only to make room for new love alongside the old. The wedding day dawned clear and crisp, the aspens shimmering gold against the blue Colorado sky. The ceremony was held outside the small church in Rico, with the mountains bearing witness. Katherine wore a dress of ivory silk that she had indeed made from Mr. Daniels's fabric, with delicate embroidery at the collar and cuffs. Lily stood proudly beside them, Sally the doll dressed in a matching outfit tucked in her arms. When the pastor pronounced Owen and Katherine husband and wife, Lily was the first to cheer, throwing the flower petals she had been saving with such enthusiasm that everyone laughed. The celebration afterward at the boarding house was joyous, with music, dancing, and enough food to feed the entire town twice over. As the evening deepened, Owen found a moment alone with his new wife, drawing her away from the festivities and into Mrs. Miller's garden. "Mrs. Edwards," he said, savoring the name on his tongue. "Are you happy?" Katherine's smile was radiant in the lantern light. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible." She touched his face gently. "When I came to Rico, I was looking for a place to belong. I never expected to find a family." Their new life together began with the integration of Katherine's seamstress business into the ranch operations. Owen converted a small outbuilding into a workshop for her, with large windows to catch the natural light and shelves for her fabrics and threads. Katherine divided her time between her shop in town, which she kept open 3 days a week, and her work at the ranch. The first test of their marriage came less than a month after the wedding, when Owen had to leave for a cattle drive that would take him away for 2 weeks. Though Katherine had known this was part of ranching life, the reality of managing the ranch alone with Lily was daunting. "You'll do fine," Owen assured her the night before he left. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." The confidence in his eyes bolstered her courage. "We'll be here waiting when you get back," she promised. "Lily and I will keep everything running smoothly." Those 2 weeks taught Katherine more about ranch life than the previous months combined. She learned to mend fences, care for the chickens and the milk cow, and keep the wood box filled. Lily proved to be an excellent teacher, showing Katherine all the tasks she had helped her father with since she was old enough to follow him around. When Owen returned, he found the ranch in perfect order, his wife and daughter waiting on the porch with Sally between them. The pride in Katherine's eyes as she showed him how she had managed spoke volumes about her growing confidence in her role as a rancher's wife. Winter came early that year, with the first heavy snow falling in November. The ranch was snug and well prepared, with the root cellar full, firewood stacked high, and winter feed stored for the cattle. In the evenings, as the wind howled outside, the 3 of them would gather by the fire, Owen carving small wooden animals for Lily, Katherine working on her sewing, and Lily practicing her reading or playing with Sally, who now had several handmade outfits courtesy of her new mother. Christmas approached with a festive air. Katherine decorated the cabin with pine boughs and red berries, and together they all rode into the forest to choose a small tree. Lily was beside herself with excitement, especially when Katherine taught her to make paper decorations and string cranberries for garlands. On Christmas Eve, after Lily was tucked into bed with visions of presents dancing in her head, Katherine and Owen sat by the fire, sharing a cup of hot cider. "I have something to tell you," Katherine said, a secret smile playing on her lips. "A Christmas gift that won't be ready until summer." Owen looked at her questioningly, then understanding dawned in his eyes. "Katherine, are you?" She nodded, her eyes shining. "We're going to have a baby, Owen. Lily will have a brother or sister in July." Owen gathered her into his arms, his heart so full he could barely speak. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair, "for everything you've brought into our lives." The news of the baby brought Lily even closer to Katherine. The little girl would often place her hand on Katherine's growing belly, talking earnestly to her unborn sibling about all the things they would do together. "I'm going to teach the baby to ride and fish and climb trees," she declared. "And I'll share Sally too, but only when the baby is careful." Spring returned to the Colorado mountains, bringing new life to the ranch. Katherine's business continued to thrive, with her designs now featured in the Denver department store catalog. Despite her advancing pregnancy, she maintained her work schedule, though Owen insisted on driving her to town rather than letting her take the buggy alone. In late June, as Katherine's time grew near, Owen arranged for Mrs. Patterson to stay at the ranch to help with Lily and the household. Dr. Thompson from Rico checked on Katherine regularly, assuring them that everything was progressing normally. The baby chose a stormy July night to make his entrance into the world. Owen paced the porch as thunder rumbled overhead, while inside, Katherine labored with Mrs. Patterson and the doctor in attendance. Lily had been put to bed hours earlier, but Owen suspected she was awake, listening to the commotion. After what seemed an eternity, a new cry joined the sound of the storm, strong, indignant, and very much alive. Dr. Thompson appeared at the door, his face weary but smiling. "Congratulations, Mr. Edwards. You have a healthy son." Owen entered the bedroom to find Katherine propped up against the pillows, her face flushed and radiant despite her exhaustion. In her arms lay a small bundle with a shock of dark hair. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Owen approached the bed with reverence, carefully sitting beside his wife and newborn child. The baby's tiny features were scrunched in concentration, his hands curled into perfect fists. "He's beautiful," Owen whispered, touching the baby's cheek with a gentle finger. "Just like his mother." "I thought we might name him Thomas, after your father," Katherine suggested. "Thomas James Edwards." Owen nodded, too overcome to speak. A soft knock at the door announced Lily, who stood in her nightgown, clutching Sally and looking uncertain. "Come in, darling," Katherine called. "Come meet your brother." Lily approached the bed cautiously, climbing up when Owen patted the space beside him. She peered at the baby with wide eyes. "He's so little," she whispered, "smaller than Sally. But he'll grow," Owen assured her. "And he'll need his big sister to look after him and teach him all sorts of things." Lily nodded solemnly, then reached out to touch the baby's hand. His tiny fingers reflexively gripped her larger one, and Lily's face transformed with wonder. "He's holding my hand, Papa. He knows I'm his sister." In that moment, looking at his wife, daughter, and newborn son, Owen Edwards felt a completeness he had never thought possible after losing Sarah. Life had taken an unexpected turn when a doll broke and a kind seamstress mended it with thread and care, setting in motion events that had led to this perfect moment. Katherine met his eyes over their children's heads, and he saw in her gaze the same gratitude and wonder he felt. They had found each other against all odds, creating a family bound together not just by blood but by choice and love. The years that followed brought changes and growth to the Edwards family. Thomas grew into a sturdy, curious boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's determination. Katherine's business expanded, with her designs now sought after by customers as far away as San Francisco. Owen's dream of breeding horses alongside his cattle operation began to take shape, with the purchase of 2 fine mares and a stallion. Lily blossomed into a capable young girl who excelled at school and helped care for her brother with devoted attention. Sally the doll remained a cherished possession, carefully preserved and occasionally mended by Katherine's skilled hands as needed. 3 years after Thomas's birth, the family welcomed another addition, a daughter they named Elizabeth, with her father's dark hair and a spirit as wild as the Colorado mountains. On the 5th anniversary of their wedding, Owen surprised Katherine with a gift, the deed to the adjacent property, which nearly doubled the size of their ranch. "For your workshop," he explained as they stood on a hill overlooking their expanded land. "You've outgrown the old one, and I thought you might like to design the new one exactly as you want it." Katherine, now 31 and more beautiful to Owen than the day they met, embraced him with tears in her eyes. "It's perfect," she said. "Room for everything to grow your horses, my business, our children. And us," Owen added, kissing her softly. "Room for us to grow together." That evening, as they sat on their porch watching their 3 children play in the yard, Lily, now 11 and reading to her siblings, Thomas at 4 trying to lasso the porch post with a piece of rope, and little Elizabeth toddling after butterflies, Owen reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "Do you ever think about that day you came into my shop with a broken doll?" Katherine asked, seemingly reading his thoughts as she often did these days. Owen took her hand, running his thumb over the calluses that spoke of both her seamstress work and ranch life. "Only every day," he replied. "Who would have thought that broken doll would lead to all of this?" Katherine leaned her head against his shoulder, watching their children in the golden evening light. "I like to think it wasn't just chance," she said softly, "that some things are meant to be, even if they arrive in unexpected packages." "Like a widower and his daughter with a broken doll?" Owen suggested. "Exactly like that," Katherine smiled. "The best things often need a little mending before their true value shows." As the sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across their land, Owen Edwards held his wife close, grateful for second chances and the healing power of love. What had begun with tears over a broken doll had transformed into a tapestry of life more beautiful and complex than either of them could have imagined, woven together with thread, care, and the unbreakable bonds of family.